Right now, on the back of your hand, there is a scratch you don't even remember getting. It healed days ago. You never thought about it again. But for a few hours after it happened, that tiny break in your skin was a battlefield. And something inside you decided in real time who got to live and who had to die. You call this healing. You call the sniffle in your throat a cold. You call the fever after a bad meal your body fighting something off. But the real answer is far stranger than any of those small, tidy words. Inside you, right now, there is a war. Not a metaphorical one, not a poetic one. An actual, ongoing, million-casualty conflict that has been running without pause since before you were born, and it will not stop until the day you die. You are not fighting it. You don't know how. Something else inside you is fighting it, and it has been fighting for longer than the human species has existed. Start with the wound. A splinter, a paper cut, a scraped knee. Bacteria that were living quietly on a doorknob or a blade of grass suddenly find themselves inside warm, wet, nutrient-rich tissue. From their point of view, this is paradise. From your point of view, this is an invasion. Within minutes, chemical alarms go off. Blood vessels near the wound widen, which is why the skin turns red and puffs up. That redness isn't damage. It's a runway, built so reinforcements can reach the site faster. The first responders arrive almost immediately. They're called neutrophils, and they are, essentially, kamikaze cells. They swarm the wound, engulf bacteria whole, and then self-destruct, releasing enzymes that dissolve both the invaders and themselves. The pus that forms around an infected cut isn't dirt leaving your body. It's a graveyard. Millions of neutrophils, dead in the line of duty, in a battle that lasted only a few hours. This isn't a new system your body improvised, it's ancient. In 1882, a Russian zoologist named Elie Mechnikov was studying starfish larvae under a microscope when he noticed something strange. When he pricked a larva with a rose thorn, mobile cells inside its transparent body swarmed the site and swallowed the foreign debris. Starfish don't have blood the way you do. They don't have antibodies. But they had cells that recognized not supposed to be here and moved to attack it. Mechnikov had found something older than humanity itself. A defense system so fundamental that it predates bones, predates blood, predates the nervous system. He called the process phagocytosis, from the Greek for devouring cell, and it eventually won him a Nobel Prize. But the deeper implication is the one that matters here. The war inside you isn't a human invention. It's older than every animal that has ever walked, swum, or crawled. And it has never once been a war your side could simply win and walk away from. Every pathogen that has ever infected a human ancestor has been evolving too. A bacterium that mutates one surface protein can become briefly invisible to defenses that worked perfectly the generation before. A virus that replicates fast enough can outrun an immune response that was, until that moment, more than adequate. Biologists sometimes call this the Red Queen problem, named for a line in a children's book about a queen who has to run constantly just to stay in the same place. Your immune system isn't just fighting individual battles, it's locked in a race that never has a finish line against enemies that are also evolving, generation after generation, in real time. This is why the immune system you were born with looks nothing like a single fixed weapon. It looks like an arsenal, built in layers, each layer added by a different chapter of evolutionary history, none of them ever fully retired. So why do you never feel most of it? Because your body runs two militaries at once, and only one of them ever bothers to tell you what's happening. The first is called innate immunity, and it's the one Mechnikov discovered. It's fast, it's crude, and it doesn't learn. It attacks anything that matches a general pattern of foreign, the way a bouncer stops anyone without the right kind of ID, without needing to know their name. This system can respond in minutes. It's also the reason a scraped knee is swollen and warm before you've even finished wincing. The second system is slower, smarter, and far more expensive to run. It's called adaptive immunity, and it doesn't just attack. It learns. For decades, immunologists struggled to explain how this second system knew what to attack in the first place. How does a cell decide that a particular virus is dangerous out of an almost infinite number of possible foreign shapes? In 1989, an immunologist named Charles Janeway proposed an answer that reshaped the field. He suggested that immune cells carry ancient sensors, evolved over hundreds of millions of years, tuned to detect specific molecular patterns found only in bacteria, viruses, and fungi, patterns that never appear in your own healthy cells. He called these pattern recognition receptors. In effect, your innate immune system doesn't need to identify an enemy by name. It just needs to recognize the enemy's uniform. Once that uniform is spotted, the adaptive system takes over. Specialized cells called T cells and B cells begin manufacturing weapons built specifically for that one invader and that one invader alone. It can take days, but once the weapon is built, your body keeps the blueprint. That's why you don't get chickenpox twice. Somewhere inside you, cells are still holding the schematics for a war they fought when you were 7 years old. Here is where the story gets stranger. Your immune system cannot see viruses, bacteria, or cancer cells the way you see a person walking toward you. It has no eyes. It operates entirely on molecular pattern matching, on shapes and signatures, on tiny chemical flags. And this creates a problem that has haunted every living thing with an immune system since the beginning. How do you build a defense force powerful enough to kill anything foreign without it accidentally killing you? Every day, your body destroys cells that carry mutations, cells that could become cancer if left alone. Every day, it tolerates trillions of bacteria living peacefully in your gut. Bacteria your immune system could obliterate in hours if it wanted to. It doesn't attack them. It has, somehow, learned to leave them alone. That balance is not guaranteed. Sometimes the system misfires. It mistakes joint tissue for an invader and attacks it anyway, which is what happens in rheumatoid arthritis. It mistakes the insulin-producing cells of the pancreas for a threat, which is what happens in type 1 diabetes. The same army built to protect you can turn its weapons inward, and when it does, there is no invader to blame. Just you, at war with yourself. Even the misery of being sick is not what it appears to be. A fever feels like a malfunction, something going wrong, a body losing control of its own temperature. But raise your internal temperature by even 1 or 2 degrees, and many bacteria and viruses replicate measurably slower. Meanwhile, several of the immune cells hunting them work faster. A fever isn't your body breaking down. It's your body deliberately turning up the heat on a battlefield it controls, betting that the invaders will suffer more from the change than you will. The exhaustion, the loss of appetite, the desire to do nothing but lie still under a blanket? That isn't weakness either. It's a resource allocation decision, redirecting energy that would normally go toward moving, digesting, and thinking straight into the war effort instead. You were never sick by accident. You were, more often than not, sick on purpose. Why would evolution build something this dangerous? Because the alternative was worse. A weaker immune system loses to infection. A system this aggressive, this well-armed, was worth the risk of occasional friendly fire, because for most of human history, the greater danger was never overreaction. It was infection winning outright. For nearly all of the time humans have existed, this was the deciding factor in whether you lived past childhood. Not predators, not starvation, not even violence, as brutal as those forces were. Infectious disease. A wound that turned septic. A fever that never broke. Bodies that could mount a faster, fiercer defense simply survived more often and passed that defense on. You are descended, unbroken, from an unbroken line of winners in this war. Every ancestor you have ever had beat a pathogen you will never know existed. And the war never actually ends. It doesn't pause when you're healthy. It doesn't take a break while you sleep. In fact, some of its most important maintenance happens exactly then. Which brings the story to something researchers didn't expect to find. Your immune system is listening to your emotions. In the 1980s, a psychologist named Janice Kiecolt-Glaser, working alongside immunologist Ronald Glaser, began studying medical students during exam periods. They drew blood before finals and after, and measured how well immune cells were functioning under stress. The results were consistent and at the time controversial. Under sustained psychological stress, immune function measurably weakened, wound healing slowed down, vaccine responses were blunted. The very war being described here, the one running in your body right now, responds to how safe or threatened your mind believes you are. This is not a metaphor either. Chronic stress raises cortisol, and cortisol in large sustained amounts suppresses the very cells Metchnikoff first watched engulfing debris under his microscope. Loneliness has been linked to elevated inflammation. Poor sleep measurably reduces the effectiveness of your antiviral defenses within a single night. A single night. So the ancient war inside you, fought by cells with no names, using weapons with no faces, is still, somehow, connected to whether you feel safe, rested, and cared for. Think about what that means for how you've been living. Every skipped night of sleep is a message sent down to soldiers who cannot read a calendar, but can read a hormone. Every stretch of isolation, every unresolved stress you carry into bed, becomes information your immune system uses to decide how hard it's willing to fight tomorrow. You were taught to think of your body as a fortress with walls. It is not that. It is closer to a nation, fully mobilized, constantly recalculating its own morale. And here is the strangest part of all. You will never meet the soldiers. You will never know most of the battles. There will be no medal, no headline, no moment of applause for the war that is won on your behalf every single day of your life, usually while you are asleep, worrying about something that, biologically speaking, matters far less than whether you slept at all. So think again about the scratch on the back of your hand. It's not gone because time passed. It's gone because, in the hours after it happened, an army with no name and no face went to war for you, using tactics inherited from creatures that lived hundreds of millions of years before the first human ever stood upright and won. It has done this before. It will do this again, tonight, tomorrow, and every day for the rest of your life, whether you thank it or not. The scratch healed, but the war never stopped. It's happening again right now.